Hi, my name is Brian Foster and I will be teaching you saxophone for the next few weeks. This week's lesson is going to be about scales. So all a scale is in music is a series of notes that are really close together on the music staff that go up and down in the same way, kind of like this. Or like this. Or like this, maybe. So there are all sorts of different scales made up of different notes. And by studying and practicing our scales, we can become better saxophonists and just better all-around musicians. So this week we're going to be learning the first half of our G scale. That's the one that I've played first. So we're just going to be learning to play this. But we'll also be learning how to practice it, because knowing how to practice your scales is just as important as knowing what they are and how to play them. So the reason we're only doing the first half this week is because when we're learning something new, it's really important to break it up into small chunks so that you can really learn the information and just learn it easier. Just like you wouldn't eat a whole sandwich in one bite, right? You take it in little bites at a time so you can chew it and swallow it without choking. So, before we get started, you can go to the link in the description and you can find, or where you will find, a link to download the sheet music for all of our half scales. And the G major one should be right at the top, so you can pause the video and get that set up, and then we'll get started. Alright, so let's look at our first note. Our first note is a G, hence, G major scale. So to play our G, we take our 3 fingers, we find these white keys called the pearl keys, and we put this one down, we put this one down, not the little one, don't worry about the little one for now, and then you put this one down. So this is our G, and this is our starting note. Now our next note is an A, so to play an A, you just go from this G, you take this finger off. So you take your bottom finger off the bottom pearl. There we go. Now our next note is a B. So to play a B, you just take another finger off. So now we only have this finger on top. Now our next note is a C. So to play a C, you take this finger off, our top finger, our pointer finger, but while we're taking our pointer finger off, we put our middle finger back on this key. So we go from this to this. Now the last note we need to learn before we can play our entire G half scale is a D. Now to play a D is a little different. So you go from this to this. Notice the thumb in the back there. So all you do is put these 3 down, and then this key in the back. Alright, so now you can pause the video if you want to practice or work on any of those notes and just play your saxophone a little. And then I'd like to play just that much. And what we're going to do is I'm going to give you a count off. So I'll give you 4 beats. So 1, 2, 3, and then you breathe on beat 4, and we're going to come in. And we're just going to play that much. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Alright, good. So now we know all our notes for our G half scale, and we know the first part of it, the going up part. So now let's do the going down part. It's the same notes, but just in reverse order. So we go D, C, B, A, G. So let's try it together. Ready? Same count off as before. 1, 2, 3. Alright, so that's all the notes and all the music we'll really be learning today. So now you can take a second, pause the video to practice if you'd like, and then we're going to do the whole thing, going up and then going down, all together. Ready? 1, 2, 3. that's our whole G half scale. So now we get to talk about how to practice, which that's the fun part for me. So the first and most important thing about practicing our scales, or really anything in music, is repetition. If you're not familiar with the word repetition, just like the word repeat, doing things several times over. So the reason it's so important is that to play an instrument, we need to use our fingers, and specifically our finger muscles. And just like a runner needs to run a lot to get faster, or a bodybuilder needs to lift a lot of weights to get stronger, we need to play a lot of music and do it repeatedly to really get it under our fingers and get better at playing our saxophones. So I'd like to take you through that a little bit. Just take you through what it feels like to play something kind of what we call on a loop, or just playing it over and over again. Not too much, not to the point that you go crazy, but to the point that you get kind of like a good finger workout. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up and down. And we're going to hold that note for a half note for 2 beats, and then we're going to wait another 2 beats, and then we're going to come back in. And then we're going to do that a few times. I'm not sure how many yet. We'll kind of feel it out. And then this is just to feel like what it's like to get a good, maybe a finger workout. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Ready? Breathe. Ready? Breathe. Ready? Breathe. So that's one of the most important things about practicing scales. It's going to take a little bit of time for your fingers to remember what they have to do and get used to pressing down the notes in that specific pattern. So if you keep doing it a little bit each day, slowly it'll get better and it'll become easier. And then music generally will become easier, and you'll just be more comfortable on your saxophone, be more comfortable playing it. So the next really important thing about practicing our scales is the speed at which we practice them. Now maybe you've seen an older saxophone player or a professional saxophone player play really fast lines all around the saxophone, and that's really cool. But they didn't start off being able to do that. They started off right where you are now, just learning how to play the scales and how to play different notes on the saxophone. So it's really important that we practice our scales nice and slowly so we can A, think ahead and think about what note comes next and get our fingers ready, and B, listen to ourselves as we're playing and make sure that the shift or the change between the notes is nice and clear, kind of like this. Now, a great tool that we all have at our disposal to practice our scales like this is a metronome. If you're not familiar with what a metronome is, it's just a device or an application on your phone, that's what I use, that kind of looks like this, and it gives you a steady beat. And you can set it at a specific speed that's measured in beats per minute. Mine is set at 60 beats per minute, so a second every beat, or a beat every second, basically, and you can speed it up or slow it down. Now, this can help us in a lot of different ways. One of the most important ways is that it helps us learn to play in time consistently. Any piece of music that we would play in band or in any other setting, we need to play to that steady beat. Another thing it really helps us out with is playing in time with other people. Because how we practice with a metronome is that we try to line our own playing up with the metronome like this. So what I'd like to do now is just try playing with a metronome together, but I'm going to play nice and quietly so you can really hear it. Ready? 1, 2, ready? So the next step from here is to just get our repetitions in. Keep playing to the metronome, play our scale to the point where we feel nice and comfortable at this tempo, and once we feel really comfortable, then we speed it up a little. Not too much, mind you, just enough so that you feel a difference. So now what I'd like to do now is get some reps in. Let's do it 6 times. So we'll do it 6 times, playing up our G half scale and back down. And then we will try to speed it up a little and see how that goes. Ready? 1, 2, 3. One, two, three. Remember to think ahead, think about what note comes next so you can get your fingers ready. 1, 2, 3. So that's 3 times, 3 more. 1, 2, 3. Good. Now, this last time, try to see if you can kind of anticipate the metronome and anticipate the beat and see if you can predict where it's going to land as you're playing. 1, 2, 3. Alright, now we speed it up. I'm going to speed it up from 60 BPM to 70 BPM. So it feels a little different now. Let's give it a shot. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Let's do it again. 1, 2, 3. Let's do it one more time. 1, 2, ready? Alright, good. Now, maybe you got every note every time when we sped it up, and that's great. And maybe you didn't. Maybe you missed a few notes. And maybe you got a little frustrated with yourself. And that's okay too, because we all learn at a different pace. And sometimes just the amount of repetitions we did and the amount of practicing we did isn't enough for you to really get it under your fingers. And there's nothing wrong with that. When you're practicing, it's really important to be kind to yourself and be patient with yourself. Because the more frustrated you get, the longer it's going to take for you to get it. Because the more frustrated you get, you're going to get stressed and you're going to get upset. And that's going to get in the way of your playing. I promise you that as long as you do this, as you practice your scales, nice and slowly, and you practice them every day, consistently, you will get better. You will improve. Everyone has it in them to be a musician, and everyone has it in them to be a great musician. So the great thing about practicing our scales is that it doesn't just have to be about getting our fingers in shape. We can make little additions to how we practice that highlight different parts of our technique. And now that we have a pretty good idea of how to practice our scales, I want to try to add some articulations to our G major scale. Since if we were to be playing a piece of music in band, it would have articulations in it. So we should practice with articulations. So our G and our A are going to be slurred or legato. Then our B and our C are going to be staccato, going up. Now going back down, it'll be that same pattern. So the D and the C are legato, and our B and our A are staccato. And then we're going to land on our G. So let's try it together. 1, 2, 3. Good. Let's try it again. 1, 2, 3. Alright, good. Now let's try to flip it around. So now our G and A are going to be staccato, our B and our C are going to be legato, and then our D and our C are going to be staccato, our B and our A are going to be legato, and then we land on our G. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Good. Let's try it again. 1, 2, 3. Excellent. So today we learned a little bit about what scales are, and then we learned the first half of our G major scale and how to practice it, and that it's important to get plenty of repetitions in so that we can work out our fingers and get used to how it feels. And we learned to practice it slowly with a metronome, so we have time to think about what we're doing and think ahead, and then to slowly increase the speed, little by little. And we learned that we can add other things to how we practice our scales, like little articulation exercises. But most importantly, we learned to be patient with ourselves, and that it's okay if you don't get everything the first try. And if you do get frustrated, just put the saxophone down and just go take a break. Play some video games, read a book, go outside, just relax. Getting frustrated will only get in your way. Now, the one thing we didn't talk about is how much we should practice. Now, I think that the best way to practice is to just do a little bit each day. Maybe 10, 15 minutes tops. You don't have to go practicing for hours on end. That's totally unnecessary. Just 10 to 15 minutes a day, but really focusing, really doing what we talked about, practicing, doing it nice and slowly and getting plenty of reps in. Then you'll see improvement over time. All right, so that's about all I wanted to do today. So that'll be the end. Thank you for watching. Thank you for participating, and happy practicing.